Welcome back. So we are going to be talking about rehearsal figures in this episode, episode 10, basically just squares and circles. How do you draw a square? How do you draw a circle? There, of course, we could use the pencil tool and we could just draw a square, but it might not be square. So there's a little bit easier way to do this. And I'm going to show you how I do rehearsal squares and rehearsal circles. So they're both using the Marquee tool. I would scroll in, especially in a project like this, where let's say I want to put all my rehearsal figures in a square or a circle. Let's assume a square for now. So I'm going to choose the Marquee tool, and you will see that here, M for Marquee, and I am going to draw the square where I want it. Now that might be a little small is the only problem, because if you get to like a letter D or something, you might need a little more room than that. And what I'm drawing here is a square that I'm going to use on all my rehearsal letters. I don't want to have to do this every time. That's incredibly time consuming. I mean, if you have the time, good for you. But I think most librarians don't. So we're going to try to do something where we do it once and then we can use it for all the letters. So I have drawn my square here. And now what I could do, I'm in layer 1, I could go ahead and right click and I could do a stroke. Fill would fill the box. Stroke is the outline of the box. You can choose where you want, inside, center, outside of the box. 9 pixels. I like that for this kind of thicker staff line setup. If you were using, if you're working on a part that had a much thinner staff line or thinner look, you might want to go to 7 pixels or something. And so you can see now we have a box there. However, the problem is that box is actually, those black pixels are part of layer 1. So if I take the eraser tool, E, you can see I can just erase them because they're part, but when I get down here, I'm also erasing a staff line. So that's not ideal. Let's look at how we can do this a little better. I'm going to go to my history. I'm going to undo these things. There we go. And yep, there we go. That's the rectangle we want. So now the difference, what I would do differently now, of course I need to be back in my Marquee tool with the M key. I'm going to come down here on the bottom right where my layers window is, and you see where it says now create a new layer. I'm going to make a new layer. Now that layer is empty right now. There are no pixels in it whatsoever. But this Marquee is sitting on top of it, and because I have this layer selected, now whatever I do will be in that layer. I'm going to do the same thing again, right click, stroke, 9 pixels, and we have that. Now the beautiful thing about this is it is in its own layer, so I can move it around without it moving the music. I can eventually flatten it where I want it. But when we're making a new box that we're going to use for a whole entire project, I need to have it separate. Why? Because I do not want any white pixels in it. I only want black pixels. So what I'm going to do now is select the box in layer 2. And because layer 2 only has the black pixels of the outline, that's all the pixels that it will select. So now I'm going to do Command C, Control C on a PC. Let's copy. And now I will do Command N, New. It's going to open a new page. And there's this thing that Photoshop will usually show you your default, and that is clipboard. That means make a new document the size of your clipboard. Usually I don't want to do that. Usually I want to make a new document the size of any of my default sizes or a size of a piece of music. But in this case, I actually do want that. 173 by 158 pixels. I didn't know that was the size of my square that I drew. Photoshop does know that. I need to make sure I'm still in grayscale. Background contents. Now this I need to make sure I change. I want to make sure it's transparent because I don't want any white pixels. And so I'm going to leave the rest of, I don't need to worry about color management for this. Okay, it has made a new document up here, Untitled 2, and you can see it is completely clean, no white pixels. Now I'm going to paste Command V or Control V on a PC. And now if you look closely here, you'll see we have the black pixels we need there. What I can then do is Command S, and I could save this as Rehearsal Box. I still save it as a TIFF file. I use the same compression as I do on other files. And that way, if I'm working on a project over a series of days or weeks, I have this rehearsal box. And in fact, If you're a really savvy Photoshop user, then you can import this into your libraries, and you can actually even assign like a keystroke to it if you want to be able to just pop it in very quickly. That's a little beyond what we're talking about in these episodes, so I'm going to keep it simple and show you a very simple way to do that, which is we can draw the marquee around it, or another way to select everything is always Control A on a PC or Command A on the Mac. And this is, of course, still in the Marquee tool. Once it's all selected, I copy, Command C or Control C, and I can go back over here to my Untitled, and now I can go to, and this is not a very good example because some of these rehearsal letters are incredibly close. I can drop this box in where I want it. And then maybe what I would do is actually move the A up into the box, and I would need to go to the background layer to do that. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that, but we could put this box anywhere. Let's say that there's a rehearsal E missing here. Pasting, I'm just doing Command V or Control V. If I hit V for the move tool, now I can move this around. And notice that all these boxes are all becoming an individual layer. So what I can do, same thing with the text, I can link those layers together, or I can make sure I get them all where I want them, zoom out, see that I'm very happy with them, and then I can flatten them onto the page. So that's a really easy way to have a box that is always the same. And one of the things that is really important to notice here is that sometimes things are crowded. And notice how I can still see the top of that flat sign. I may need the box a little lower. There may be a slur or a tie that goes through the box. And if I had just copied the box from the other layer, of course I have these all selected, and you'll notice, you see how it moved the box on B, so I should have made sure that these were unselected. Let me go back to here, and let me make sure I only have layer 4 selected when I move. And now it only moves layer 4. And we need to see things that are behind that. And we also need to see the rehearsal letters that are already printed on the page. And if this had white pixels in it, if I copied it from a layer that had a background, then it would cover up whatever's in there. Now, yes, you could take the eraser tool and you could erase the white pixels from inside to show what's behind it. But what a waste of time when you could just make one of these little rehearsal boxes that only has the black pixels that you need, and then you can just copy and paste it and drop it wherever you do it. I do everything on one page for rehearsal boxes at the same time because you copy it, it's in your clipboard, and then I just paste, 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 paste. Command V, Command V, Command V. Or Control V on a PC. So how about a circle? Some of you are like, oh, this is great, but what about a circle? Well, let's go to our Marquee tool. M takes us to the Marquee tool. As you might remember, if I use the Shift key, I can toggle inside a tool. And so I just did Shift M, and that toggles me to the ellipse. So we can see I have ellipse selected in the upper left-hand corner. And now I can do the same thing. Let me go ahead and make a new layer. And I can, this tempo marking will be a little challenging, but let's say I go ahead and make this circle, and that's what I want it to be. I'm in a layer that's all by itself, and the same thing. Right click after you've drawn it the shape you want, stroke. I'm going to stay with 9 pixels, and we now have a circle that I can move around. And so the same thing can happen here, and this is even more important. Now I can actually select with the circle. And this is actually an important thing about using the ellipse tool. Sometimes you have one rehearsal figure missing, and maybe the existing rehearsal figures already have circles around them. You could copy a rehearsal figure this way using the ellipse tool without having to worry about, because if I have a square, if I go back to the square marquee, even if I get in tight, sometimes it's going to be hard to not clip something somewhere. And so the ellipse tool, what that does is that makes it a little easier for me to select a circle. And I can just nudge that into place, and then I could copy that rehearsal figure, and I could paste it, and I could just erase the letter and type a new letter in using the text tool. But in this case, we're still talking about just making circles, and so this is in layer 5. I've drawn the circle. I'm going to copy the circle. There's no white pixels, just black pixels. I'm going to do new. Again, clipboard, size, make sure that my background contents are transparent, and now, okay. It's of course square because its document is set up square, but that doesn't matter because there's no white pixels. And I paste, and now marquee, and I can go to a square marquee, in fact, for this, and Command A or Control A selects all, and Command C will copy it, and now I could come here, draw a marquee, and Command V and boom, now I have a circle, and I could drop a bunch of circles on my page or put them around all the rehearsal figures that need it. So I hope you found that helpful. Just real quick to show you what I do though when I'm done. Let's assume that all these rehearsal figures are where they need to be. Let's assume they're all the right shapes and everything. Then I can just select these rehearsal figures and I can do Command E or right click and select merge down. And now it's merged them into one layer. So all my rehearsal figures are now one layer, and you can see if I were to move them, they would all move as one layer. But I don't really want them to move, and if I've decided this is where I want them to be on the document, I will actually do Command E again, and now they are part of the music, and there is no way to get rid of this circle or this square without either getting in very close to erase around the staff lines or something like that. So that's how we do rehearsal squares, rehearsal circles. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can stay tuned to all the future episodes that are still to come.